Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the issue, I guess, of the eradication of all forms of merit. And it's happened throughout Western society at the behest and control and direction of the globalist cabal. The more they can remove merit in all its forms, the much easier it is to shoehorn in illiterate IQ 80 peasants from the third world. So, one begets the conditions and circumstances to introduce the other. So they're interconnected in that sense. The more you have merit from the most advanced society in the world, white society, the more you have merit, then the harder it is, the more difficult it is to bring in masses of illiterate, low IQ third world peasants. So there's certainly if you like, a structural sort of purpose to what they're doing. Now, the issue, of course, is that the whole thing is ideological, and none of it is practical, none of it is organic, none of it is based on, again, any form of merit, that the hardest working person gets the job, or the brightest person, or the most intelligent, or the most capable, or the one who has the most aptitude. All that's gone now, and it's all been replaced by ideology. Just to give you this is just a one-off example, because I'm doing another video on this. There's two jobs and I have a look at the government jobs, particularly to do with welfare-related type things, because that sector has boomed out of all proportion, and it's heavily populated with minorities, but that the government Australian government just creates these jobs so they can employ these masses of Indians and so on that they bring in, that are unneeded, unnecessary, unwanted, and produce and create nothing. So here's a job. Now, this is a women's rights thing. This is make sure, girls, make sure you're getting your rights, and you take vengeance against those evil men that have oppressed you for centuries. Now, that job is advertised, and I'll just round off the numbers here. That job is advertised at $145,000 a year. So women's rights, you stick it up and you go, girl boss, hey. And the advert for the position very much is, women have been oppressed for centuries by evil men, and it's your government is helping you fight back against the evil oppressor. This is hardly a good thing for gender relations, you'd think. It appears that the government is deliberately engaged in disrupting and subverting any possibility of harmonious gender relations, and that's another matter. But then there's another advert, just a couple of adverts down, on the government employment thing. Just a couple of adverts. This is a job for a counsellor to prevent male suicide. Now, male suicide is quite an issue in Australia and elsewhere around the Western world, and understandably, in my view at least. But how seriously does the government treat it or view it? Surely the loss of a loss of a taxpayer or a worker that's doing, whether it's a labour or anything else, I mean, you'd think that would be concerning. And you'd think that the job would pay at least the same as the women's you go girl boss job that was out. But no, the man's job is this job that where they seem to suggest that a woman might be more suitable for it. But anyway, this job pays $100. I'm just rounding off the numbers here. Pays $100, whereas the women's council job pays $145. So what, 45% less? Or more than 45% less, actually. It's about 90 something. More than 45% less for the job of talking men out of committing suicide, and helping them through what may be a difficult time, or maybe on drugs or something. But that much difference. Why wouldn't they be paid the same? Why wouldn't they be on the same salary and the same approximate salary and same conditions? The women's counsellor is a far better paid, more prestigious job. Now, if you look at the offices that the women's counselling gig is, you go on the website. These are certainly, based on what the website. These are palatial well-appointed officers that exude sort of power and confidence, whereas the officers that the counsellor for men's suicide may only operate by phone, so I suppose there's an element of that there. But the officers are in a down at heel end of town, less than illustrious, so very different circumstances and conditions. If I went into that office that the suicide counsellor jobs are for, you'd probably want to do yourself in just arriving in the front door from the looks of the place. Nonetheless, so I want to just show that that's just an illustration of how ideological it's become, all sorts of employment. Now, the requirement for the women's role is that you just need, you qualify. As long as you hate men, you're good to go. Whereas the requirement for the men's counsellor requires a higher level of education and certification. Wow, well, shouldn't it be the reverse if you're being paid more? No, because one job is ideological. The other job is actually a real job. And wherever you see a real job, it pays less than the ideological job. And this is one of the huge problems that the globalists have inflicted upon us. They need a lot of social engineers to re-engineer society as they wanted to be for their own purposes and ends. And that means ideological fanatics get paid a lot more. Consider the woman who's the head of, who's a white woman, by the way, the head of the United States NPR. It's like a radio station. It's heavily left-leaning, and it just pumps and churns out, anti-male, anti-white, anti-Christian, anti-Trump propaganda. And the person who is in charge there, I mean, I wouldn't have hired somebody or promoted someone, but she is a reliable ideological fanatic. She ticks the boxes. I hate Trump. I hate men. I hate this. I hate that. And apart from that, you got somebody who, it's a big carrot to dangle, somebody who may only make $100 a year. I'm using round numbers here. $100 a year in the real world or less, can make $600-700 a year, all packaged up by being an ideological, fanatical warrior, doing as she's told and making sure that the propaganda message stays tightly focused on, all men are rapists, pedophile, Nazis, things like that. White supremacy is our biggest threat. Now, coming to the issue of competence, capability, aptitude, merit, and so on, this too has been subverted. The idea of strictly pass and fail exams that was around when I was a kid, that's gone out the window. The idea that to get to university, you had to be, the brightest people. You had to be, and to get into medicine or to get into engineering or law, you had to do very, very well. When people are capable in their own right, by their sheer ability in a merit system, they're much harder to control because they have they've achieved everything they have by merit. Now, it doesn't mean that there weren't flunkies and goons and the chairman of the board's wastrel nephew. All that stuff was still there, but the majority of people, not all, and it wasn't a perfect system, but the majority of people were there on some form, mostly merit, if not completely merit. PhDs are rare. If you met a PhD, it was like you were talking to a god or something. They were treated with reverence. Again, when I was a young man, I'm in my 60s now. So looking at the whole idea of merit, that's all been subverted. So the idea of pass and fail exams is gone. The idea of equal outcomes, there aren't enough girls coming first in mathematics, and then 5 minutes later, suddenly girls are coming first in mathematics. We don't have enough brown girls coming first. Bingo! Suddenly, brown girls are coming first. We don't have enough black lesbians coming first in university engineering. Bingo! And so on. So they're able to just arrange the seating at the table however they wanted, just purely for ideological reasons. They just live in this fantasy world. So you're looking at very few people that are actually qualified or capable or have got where they are on any form of merit. Now, they still exist, but they're rare. And the pockets of where they exist are becoming smaller and smaller. You just need to be an ideological warrior in many cases, not all, but many cases, get the gig. Now, when I look through the senior management listing, there's a business site you can look through these things. I look through the senior management listing of an engineering firm, and just 5 years ago it was only straight white males. Now, there's Abduls, Ahmeds, and Sulas, and so on, and Indians everywhere. I mean, they've obviously purposefully gone down this path of, we will not employ straight white males, and if we have them, we'll get rid of them. We will employ black lesbians. We're going to, for ideological reasons. Now, that means there's a lot less people there, and I go to meetings with some of these affirmative action, diversity, equity, inclusion, quota hires, and I'm aghast at how fucking stupid they are, how totally unqualified. Not that they're just minimally unqualified or they've got a good attitude, they really want to do well and they're trying to go. No, they've got a shitty attitude, they don't give a fuck, and they're not qualified, and they're entitled. Now, that's a toxic mix in my view, and these people are everywhere. And how it's come to this is, well, we know how it's come to this. The globalists have demanded it. BlackRock has demanded it. State Street's demanded it. No more loans for you, buddies. And there's a huge incentive for the executives, BlackRock, to say, well, we can walk your share price up to $100 a share. So just make sure you've got your executive compensation plan. You all get gazillions of dollars each. Your executive compensation plan, it gets triggered when the share price hits $100. We'll walk it up to $100 for you, so you can trigger your compensation plan so it'll appear meritorious. But the reality is it was all a prearranged backroom deal. But in order to get this huge payout to stuff fuckloads of money in your pocket, you have to employ a serious number of black lesbians. That's it. That's the deal. Now, there's a lot of people that are more than willing to sell them out, because most of the, well, not all, but much of the executive suite is filled with flunkies. The equivalent in the society maidens and the rich socialite end of town. Most of them are from that, so they're not all, but most of them are from that. So they're happy to sell out the troglodytes and the lowlifes and the working class and the middle class. They're happy to sell out merit. Now, merit's never been a big deal, or certainly not, that I've noticed, and been a big deal amongst the socialites. They have a sense of entitlement as well. They have a right to prestigious employment, whether they're simply because they're socially superior to the rest of us. So, and they run with that crowd. But looking at the when World War II broke out, there was a huge demand for a lot of skilled people, and there were nowhere near there were enough people to fill those roles. Tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of mechanics, to service aircraft and, jeeps and lorries and tanks and goodness knows, how much people to service and maintain field artillery, service and maintain ships, and the list goes on. Supply chain organisation to arrange manufacturing, the quality of manufacturing, people to oversee to make sure that products for war were manufactured. Because you don't want to find, the British had a big problem with dud shells and torpedoes. They'd be firing all those torpedoes off, and half of them wouldn't ignite. So quality of production is a big issue. Now, so when they were faced with this, what do? You've only got 100 mechanics, for example. You've only got 100 mechanics, but you need 100,000. You can't. You don't have the time. The war is on right now. You need these people now. You can't put them through some 4 or 5 year apprenticeship. No. So you have to go. But what's your next step? It's aptitude. People who display the capability. Maybe they've got some other training or experience that relates in some way, but you have to look at aptitude. So you'll put 100 people in front of an engine, you'll tell them how to strip it and fix it, or troubleshoot it, or whatever the mechanical requirement is. And you'll find of those 100, 10 are real quick studies. They really sort of catch on quick, and they, okay, you 10 go over there, next to 100, and so on. So your aptitude and capability doesn't mean the other people are dumb or stupid or irrelevant. They just aren't catching on as quick. They're not able to grasp the issues as quickly. Maybe some of them are stupid. Maybe some of them would never get it. But you can't afford the time put in to slowly bring these people along, you need results quickly. And aptitude and quick study type aptitude capability was a big issue. And that separated people. Now, it could be a keenness to learn. It could be just a good attitude to say, well, I really want to do this well. Or, the other factors can come into play. Maybe some of the other people were lazy. Maybe they thought, oh, fuck this. I don't want to be getting my hands dirty with oil and grease. I want to sit in an office and push paper. That you can get those sorts of things too. But so people relied on aptitude. And you look at, say, a gunner, handling artillery pieces. And you'd start again. You'd give 100 of them a go on the thing, and find that 10 of them would sort of catch on straight away what they need to do to deliver, accurate fire from the field artillery piece. And so this was an aptitude thing, and the same occurred in, say, logistical organisation or planning or things like that. Some people just really got it. In my own case, I'm one of the I'm still at school doing a summer vacation type job, and I was a quick study on statistics, as it turned out, and so they grabbed me. I was only had the job for a year, but they grabbed me as a punk ass kid and stuck me in the planning department of this place simply because I could look at the statistics and I could see logical sequences, whereas other people could stare at it all day and couldn't get it. But for me, I got it quickly. So. And so that was the ability at the time to recognize aptitude. Okay, this guy can do it. Let's stick him in there. So it wasn't an idea, is he a black lesbian, or is he this, or is he that? Oh, no, we can't put him in there. He's got to go. Now, today, the aptitude thing, fuck the aptitude. That, we need a black lesbian in this department. Can she do the job? Well, no, but who gives a fuck? We tick the boxes. And if you multiply that out across the entire economy of the Western world, or most of it, then you can see the problem. People are in jobs they can't do, don't want to do, don't give a fuck, and yet they believe they're entitled to the benefits, say the salary or the prestige or the working conditions. Gee, this is a nice air-conditioned office, and there's a nice view of the the park, Central Park, those sorts of things. And so, but what it means, it isn't just that you're giving the job to the the IQ 80 black lesbian. It means that you're saying you're not putting the person that can do the job in that position, and that's a catastrophe. And it's, again, being multiplied all over the Western world. Now, President Trump, to his great credit, and his administration, is trying to turn the tide on this and institute merit. Now, merit is perceived by the activists as being the equivalent of Hitler and white supremacy. We can't compete at the white person's level, so unless the standards are on the floor, and only if the standards are on the floor do we have equity. The minute the standards are raised above the floor level, then we don't have equity. We therefore have white supremacy. We therefore have Hitler, and so that's their deductive process of reasoning. And the reality, though, is that every other country around the world at the globalist direction is doubling down, because they say, okay, well, the US is now the outlier because of the outlier in terms of the globalist project, outlier with the President Trump's administration. So we're going to double down in Britain, double down in Australia and Germany and elsewhere, so that we'll encircle the United States with super globalist, pro-globalist attitude, places like Britain and Australia, and that'll fuck him up. So we'll have a ready cadre of globalist fanatics. So as soon as we get back in control of the US, we can flood the US with all these ideological fanatics. So the Trump administration, in my view, needs to recognize this and accept it and go, okay, you want to double down on, like the British government, the flunky, globalist stooge British government is doing. You want to double down on globalist, white supremacist, evil Nazis. You want to do that? Okay. You've got a 5 million % fucking tariff. I don't mean that, but to say, okay, the US, when the globalists were in charge, the US used all its power and influence to bully and slap around every other country that did not go along with the globalist project. So Trump, in my view, needs to reverse that. Say, okay, you need to stop the globalist project right now, otherwise we will come after you and we'll tariff the fuck out of you. which was exactly the same as the US was doing before, only to push places like Britain and Australia towards the globalist project. So that's the reality of that. But aptitude and capability, and this was something when I was still at school, as a kid at school, as far back as I can remember. I remember this would have been very early primary school, so I would have been, I don't know, 5, 6 years old, something like that. And there was a kid who was and it didn't matter what field of endeavour. There was this kid who had a really good singing voice, and so the teachers encouraged this kid to do singing lessons and to expand. You've got a natural ability or a natural capability, an aptitude for this. Let's encourage that. Let's support it. Let's encourage it. I think that there's more equity in that than there is in anything that they're doing today. Pursuing aptitude. The idea was, let's do. What do you have? Where's your natural aptitude? Whether it's singing or I don't know, swinging from the chandelier, mathematics or history or English or whatever subject it is, whatever field endeavor that we can discover or observe or notice a natural aptitude you have, we will help you and encourage you to go further with that. There was a kid who was like a gymnast, a natural gymnast. He could do cartwheels and somersaults and all that sort of thing. Again, he's quite young, 5, 6 years old or something, and he was encouraged to do that. And again, there was a teacher that had some sort of involvement with that, and so they were encouraging this guy to. Another kid was a bit of a mathematics whiz, and they'd arranged extra coaching and lessons for him, and someone else was good at such and such, and someone else at so and so. There was this kid who was really good at like clay modeling, and he would make sort of sculptures and that sort of thing. There's another kid who was really good at soccer, and he was encouraged, and so on and so on. So there was this attempt, but that's gone now. Everything's a social, everything's sort of the equity thing. We have to promote the black lesbian. No. Promote the most capable person. Now, education can enhance that, and that was something that education was for, whether it be advanced education, at the tertiary level, or extra lessons at high school. A high school, I remember this is a government school. They put on extra lessons for people that wanted it. Like if you wanted to say do advanced mathematics or something like that, or you wanted to do music or something, it didn't matter. They would put on extra lessons for you, and to help you and encourage you. I don't know whether that sort of thing still goes on. Maybe it does, but again, it was based on aptitude. You couldn't turn up and say, "Well, I'm hopeless at this. I don't know jack shit about it, and by the way, I don't care." That didn't work. It was noticed that I was this kid who picked up playing the piano really quickly, and then they put this guy off into extra piano, or they offered it, and he took it up extra. And there were teachers that were prepared to stay back and coach this guy in piano playing, and but that's all gone, and people that had a natural aptitude for learning or whatever it was would then go on to university and then could go on further. Maybe they would get a master's or a PhD or whatever. But encouraging the natural ability. Now, it means you form an elite around, because not everyone is as dedicated and hardworking or bright enough to reach that level of accomplishment. But it is a natural, organic elite that is there based on aptitude and capability, dedication and hard work. So some kids were only good at school because they hit the books. They were absolutely focused and determined to be good and to hit the books. Other kids sort of were far more naturally bright, had photographic memories, that sort of thing, and they did well for other reasons. Not that they didn't study, something they did, but there were kids that were pretty ordinary, maybe on the intelligence side of things, but they were firmly dedicated and focused, and they still could do great things. I think it was Alexander Graham Bell said, what invention is 10% inspiration and 90% perspiration, or words to that effect at least. And there were kids there I saw that were very determined students and did rather well, even though at the end of the day they didn't have a 10 million IQ or anything like that. So we need to readjust, I believe, the whole concept of Western economies has been so comprehensively subverted by the globalists, and we now have, for the first time in human history, the least competent people in the most decision-making roles, and that is a catastrophe for all of us. You've been a Tacitus today, your pushback channel. Thank you for listening.